The first thing Jason Miller saw when he stepped out of his faded camper was the gun on the man's hip. The second was the kid behind him, hands shaking, eyes wide, standing on the cracked gravel like he'd been dragged there. 6 black SUVs lined the edge of the trailer park engines, still running exhaust curling in the cold Oklahoma air. Men in suits fanned out like they owned the place, their polished shoes crunching beer caps and broken glass. It looked like a movie scene accidentally dumped into the cheapest RV lot outside Tulsa. "Step aside, sir," the tallest one said, his voice clipped, practiced. "You're interfering with a family matter." Jason planted his work boots on the ground like they were poured in concrete, oil-stained jeans, warehouse badge still clipped to his shirt. 8-hour night shift behind him. No sleep ahead of him if this went bad. "That boy doesn't look like a matter to me," Jason said, nodding toward the kid. He looked scared. Behind Jason, the thin aluminum door rattled as a small face pressed against the window shade. His son, Noah, 8 years old, clutching the curtain with white knuckles, watching his father square up to men who could buy this whole park with what they paid for a watch. From the front SUV, a man stepped out in a dark overcoat, silver hair perfectly in place despite the wind. His face was on billboards along the interstate. Hotels, gas stations, energy, West Corp. He looked at Jason the way a man looks at a bug on his windshield. Then he pointed at the kid behind the guards. "That is my son," he said, "and I am taking him home. Before I go any further, tell me where you're listening from tonight and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe courage still matters in this world." By the time those SUVs rolled into the lot, Jason Miller had already lived a lifetime of being underestimated. He was 37, a forklift operator on the graveyard shift at a distribution warehouse off I-44. Most nights started the same way: cheap coffee in a chipped mug, steel-toed boots by the door, a quick kiss on Noah's head before he slipped out into the dark. He moved pallets under humming fluorescent lights until dawn, then came home to a narrow camper that shook every time a semi roared past on the highway. People saw the calloused hands, the tired eyes, the truck that coughed smoke, and figured they knew the whole story. Single dad. Trailer park. Must have made a mess of his life somewhere. They didn't see him kneeling on the camper floor at 6 a.m., helping Noah sound out spelling words before school. They didn't see the way his gaze lingered on the empty corner where a second bunk should have been the spot his wife Beth had picked out before a drunk driver ran a red light 3 years back. The medical bills had swallowed their little savings whole. The grief had taken the rest. Jason sold the house, sold the good car, sold everything that wasn't nailed down except the old camper. Beth's dad left them. It was supposed to be for road trips. It became their whole world instead. He worked nights because it paid 50 cents more an hour. He packed Noah's lunch with whatever was on sale. He did math on the back of receipts at the kitchen counter, deciding whether the electric bill or the truck repair could wait another week. Through it all, he clung to one stubborn thing: Noah would feel safe, even if Jason didn't. That was why he noticed the kid in the parking lot behind the diner. It was a cold Friday in late October, the kind that made your breath hang in the air. Jason had picked Noah up from after-school care and taken him for pancakes because sometimes a kid just needed syrup for dinner. When they came back out, he saw a beat-up red convertible tucked behind the dumpster frost, already creeping up the windshield. Someone was curled up inside, hoodie pulled over his head, backpack wedged under his cheek as a pillow. Jason might have ignored it once upon a time. But grief changes the way you see people who are alone in the cold. He told Noah to wait in the truck and walked over Knuckles, tapping gently on the fogged glass. The kid jerked awake, eyes darting, breathing fast. Up close, Jason could see he was maybe 20 at most, pale, From living indoors too long, knuckles scraped like he'd been in a fight with something bigger than him. "Hey," Jason said, keeping his voice easy like he was asking about the weather. "You okay in there?" For a long second, the kid just stared at him like he was trying to decide whether Jason was another problem. Then his shoulders sagged. "Yeah," he muttered. "I'm fine, just taking a break." Jason glanced at the pile of fast food wrappers on the floorboard, the duffel bag stuffed with clothes, the way the kid's hands shook as he reached for the keys that weren't even in the ignition. It was in that moment, a tired warehouse man in a parking lot and a stranger in a freezing car, that Jason made the decision that would change everything. "You got anywhere to go tonight?" he asked. The kid swallowed, eyes flicking away. "Not really." Jason thought of Noah asleep alone in the camper while he worked nights. Thought of Beth, who used to stop and hand out water bottles to strangers on the roadside because you never know what storm they just survived. He took a breath. "I've got a spare bunk in an old camper," he said. "It's not much, but it's warm, and my boy could use someone to help him with his math that isn't half asleep. You want a place for a few days, we can talk about it." The kid hesitated, then nodded almost like his legs might give out if he didn't. "Name's Liam," he said quietly. "Liam West." Jason didn't know it yet, standing there in the chill behind the diner. He didn't know that last names sat on top of half the buildings downtown. He didn't know who would come looking. All he knew was there was room in the camper for one more lost soul, and he was the kind of man who couldn't walk away. Jason didn't realize how quickly a stranger could become part of a routine until the next few mornings blurred together. Liam woke early, always before sunrise, sitting at the tiny dinette with a mug of instant coffee and a notebook spread open. He never said much, but he always looked relieved when Jason returned from the night shift. Relieved in a way that made Jason wonder just how long the kid had been waiting for something to go wrong in his life. Noah adored him from the start. It wasn't just the homework help, though, that was a blessing. It was the way Liam listened to him with genuine interest, as if an 8-year-old's drawing of a rocket ship was a major scientific breakthrough. Noah followed him around the camper with the ease of someone who'd finally found a big brother. But even as a warm rhythm settled in the outside world, was already sharpening its claws. It started at the school drop-off line. A cluster of parents lingered near the fence as Jason pulled up in his old Ford, the muffler rattling like loose coins. He stepped out, stretched his stiff back, and opened the passenger door for Noah. That's when he heard it. A whisper. Then another. Then a low, not even subtle chuckle. "Single dad bringing home a stray, now. Is that the kid from that diner around 169? Saw him sleeping in a car last week. Figures. Trailer park hospitality." Jason didn't look up, didn't give any reaction, but Noah did. The boy's small face tightened. He clutched Jason's sleeve in a way he hadn't since kindergarten. Jason knelt down, brushed Noah's shoulder. "You go have a good day, bud." But as Noah walked away, he kept glancing back like he was afraid his father might break under all those eyes. Jason had grown used to being treated as forgettable, insignificant. But somehow knowing Noah heard those comments made them land differently, like they were aimed at both of them. And maybe they were. Later that afternoon, after a short nap and a long shower, Jason stopped by the warehouse early to drop off some paperwork. His supervisor, a man named Kelton with a gut that hung over his belt and an ego twice as big, spotted him immediately. "Well, well," Kelton said loudly, loud enough for everyone in the break area to hear. "Look who finally remembered to turn in his forms. What's the matter, Miller? Too busy playing hero in that circus you call a home." Jason set the papers on the table. "Just doing my job, sir." Kelton smirked like he'd been handed a gift. "Your job is to move freight, not collect strays. Word gets around, you know. People talk." That kid living with you trouble follows boys like that? Jason kept his tone steady. He needed a place to stay. Kelton leaned back, crossing his arms. And you needed to think before you dragged more problems into your life. You already struggle to keep your hours consistent. If anything goes sideways because of that, boy, don't expect sympathy. This isn't a charity. A couple of warehouse workers snickered. Someone muttered something about white trash sainthood. Jason walked out before he said something he couldn't take back. But the shame hit harder than expected, not because of the insult, but because he could feel how quickly it would ripple through his stability and Noah's. That night, as Jason stood at the small sink washing dishes, he heard soft footsteps. Liam hovered in the doorway. "I can hear things," Liam said quietly. "People talk. They always do." Jason dried his hands on a towel. "Don't worry about them. Folks in this town need something to gossip about." But Liam didn't move. His shoulders were tighter than usual. "I don't want to get you in trouble. Or Noah." Jason studied him. The kid looked smaller tonight, fragile in a way he hid behind quietness. "You're not trouble," Jason said. "You're a person who needed a place." "That's it." Liam's jaw clenched. "I'm more trouble than you know." Then he walked away before Jason could ask what that meant. 2 days later, the mistreatment escalated from whispers to something sharper. Every Thursday, the camper park held a mandatory inspection, mostly to check hookups and fire hazards. Usually it was quick, but this time Mrs. Lawton, the park manager, arrived with a clipboard and a look that said she smelled blood in the water. She stepped into the cramped space, eyes immediately locking onto Liam's duffel bag. "You have an unauthorized occupant." Jason kept his tone even. "Temporary guest. Temporary guests must be registered and approved, and this," she tapped her pen on the fridge door, "violates your agreement." "It's for a short time," Jason said. "He's looking for work." She snorted. "Work? That boy looks like he's hiding from something. If I find out you're harboring criminals or unregistered offenders or anyone who threatens the park's insurance, your lot is gone. Evicted. Out. No discussion." Behind her, Noah stood in the hallway. He wasn't hiding, but he wasn't moving either. His face had gone pale. "Please," he said quietly. "Don't make us leave." Mrs. Lawton softened nothing. "Rules are rules, sweetheart." Jason stepped forward, blocking her view of Noah. "You've known me 3 years," he said calmly. "I pay on time. I keep quiet. I keep to myself." "That's why this concerns me," she replied. "You bringing in strangers? That's not quiet. That's unpredictable." When she finally left, Jason closed the door and leaned his forehead against it, breathing slow, steady breaths. Noah came up beside him and slipped his hand into Jason's. "Dad," he whispered. "I like Liam. I don't want him to go." Jason hugged him, wishing he had answers, wishing he had any kind of certainty. That night, while Liam and Noah played cards, Jason stepped outside to clear his head. The air was sharp and cold. Trailer park lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. That's when he saw the sedan. It wasn't one of the SUVs from before, but it didn't belong here either. Clean, polished windows, tinted engine running low and steady. It idled across the road just outside the property line. The same car had been there earlier near the warehouse, and once more outside the grocery store. A chill crept across Jason's spine. He moved closer, careful not to be obvious. As he stepped beneath the street lamp, the sedan pulled away smoothly, disappearing down the road. Inside, the camper glowed warm and golden. Liam laughed at something Noah said. Jason watched them through the window, a knot tightening in his stomach. Someone was watching them. Within a week, the pressure began compressing from all sides. At work, Jason was written up twice, once for returning late from break, though the time card showed otherwise, and once for inattentive operation of machinery, though no incident had occurred. He knew Kelton was building a paper trail. He also knew arguing would make it worse. At school, Noah's teacher pulled Jason aside. "Some parents have expressed concerns," she said carefully, "about the environment at home." Jason felt heat rise in his chest. "What environment?" She shifted uncomfortably. "Your guest. People are saying he might be influencing Noah, that Noah seems distracted, worried." Noah, who had always been bright and cheerful, now scribbled nervously on his desk, eyes dropping whenever adults talked around him. At the camper, Mrs. Lawton began patrolling more often. Once, Jason found her peering through the back window. Another time, she photographed the license plates of every car in the vicinity. All of it wore on Jason, but he kept steady, kept working, kept showing up. But Noah felt everything. He began waking from bad dreams, creeping into Jason's room and whispering, "Is that car coming back? Are they going to take Liam away? Are we going to get kicked out?" Jason held him each time, reassuring him even as he felt the same fear gnawing at his own insides. And Liam grew quieter. His eyes stayed down. His shoulders tensed when a door slammed too loud. He sometimes stepped outside to take calls he didn't answer, just staring at the vibrating phone until it stopped. One evening, after a long shift, Jason returned to find Liam sitting outside on the camper steps. The kid's breathing was shallow, hands shaking. "You okay?" Jason asked. Liam didn't look up. "I heard them. At the market. Talking about you. About Noah. They said I'm gonna get you evicted. That I'm bad news. That you're an idiot for trying to help someone like me." His voice cracked. "They're right." "No," Jason said. "They aren't." But Liam wasn't convinced. "You don't know who my father is." Jason's breath caught. A thin crack appeared in the truth Liam had been holding back. He opened his mouth to speak, but headlights washed over them, bright, harsh, sudden. A vehicle rolled into the lot. Not an SUV. The same sedan as before. It didn't park. It crawled. Slow. Deliberate. Watching. Liam stood so quickly the steps rattled, his face drained of color. "It's him." Before Jason could ask who the sedan accelerated toward the exit, its tires spitting gravel as it sped into the darkness. Jason stared after it, pulse hammering. Liam looked at him with a kind of fear he'd never shown before. "He found me." The night swallowed the words, leaving the three of them in the cold, standing on fragile ground. And Jason knew whatever storm had been gathering around them was about to break wide open. Jason barely slept that night. Every time a truck rumbled past on the highway or a dog barked down the street, his eyes snapped open, expecting to see that sedan pulling back into the lot. By dawn, he'd given up on resting and brewed a pot of burnt coffee while Noah and Liam slept in the bunks behind him. But exhaustion wasn't the thing chewing at his insides, it was clarity. Whoever was looking for Liam wasn't bluffing. And the kid's pale reaction, the way his breath shook when he said, "He found me," told Jason this was the kind of trouble that didn't stop until someone got hurt. Around noon, while Noah colored at the table, and Liam tried to pretend everything was normal, Jason stepped outside to take a call from the school. The teacher wanted a conference, concerns about home stability. Jason listened silently, jaw clenched, then hung up. The moment he turned back toward the camper, he saw the sedan. Not creeping this time. Parked bold as a dare at the entrance of the lot. A man leaned against the driver's door. Well-dressed, expensive coat, sunglasses, clean haircut. He didn't look like someone who spent time in places like this. He looked like someone who bought places like this just so he could bulldoze them. He lifted a hand and motioned for Jason to come over. Jason's chest tightened. He didn't go. Instead, he stepped into the camper. "Liam," he said quietly. "Someone's here." The kid froze mid-motion. His pencil slipped from his fingers. "Is it him?" "I think so." Liam swallowed, nodding once like a man accepting a sentence. He stood trembling but trying not to show it. "I'll go. I don't want Noah involved, no," Jason said, firmer than he intended. "You don't walk up to someone like that alone." Liam looked at him surprised. "You don't understand. He's not just some guy. Doesn't matter who he is." But Liam shook his head. "It does. He's my father." The air went still. Jason felt the words land like a blow. Not because Liam had a father the kid was alive, of course he did, but because of the way he said "my father," like the word itself tasted like poison. Before Jason could ask anything more, the man outside walked straight toward the camper. No hesitation, no fear. Just a man who believed the world bent at his will. Jason motioned for Noah to stay behind him, then stepped out. Liam followed, but stayed close to the door like he wanted an escape route. The man stopped a few feet away. "Nice place," he said with a cool smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Jason Miller, right?" Jason didn't answer. The man turned his gaze on Liam. "Get in the car." Liam flinched. Jason saw it, saw the memory of something old and painful flash in the kid's expression. "No," Jason said. The man lifted an eyebrow. "Excuse me, he's not going anywhere unless he wants to." "That's adorable," the man replied. "But this is a family matter. My son has certain obligations." Jason stepped in front of Liam fully. "He's not a possession." The man's jaw tightened. "I'm not repeating myself, Liam." He reached past Jason and grabbed Liam's wrist. Everything inside Jason snapped. There are moments, sharp, decisive, when a person becomes exactly who they're meant to be. For Jason, it came the split second he saw fear explode across Liam's face, a look identical to the one Noah had the day Beth died, when the world had shown its cruelty too brutally and too soon. He didn't think. He moved. Jason grabbed the man's arm and yanked him backward so hard the sunglasses flew off. The man stumbled, shocked, not used to being handled by anyone, especially a warehouse worker from a trailer park. "Don't touch him," Jason said, voice quiet but shaking with force. Behind them, several trailer doors opened. Neighbors stepped out, some curious, some wary. The lot began filling with eyes. The man straightened his coat, composing himself with a slow breath. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Jason didn't blink. "Doesn't change my answer." The man studied him for a long moment. A dangerous one. Then he smiled in a way that chilled Jason more than any threat. "You think you're protecting him? You have no clue what he's running from." Liam stepped forward, then voice trembling. "Stop lying. You're hiding the truth because it makes you look better." The man turned on him sharply. "I gave you everything. I built a world for you, and you repay me by running away with strangers. Look where you ended up. This," he gestured at the entire park, "is what you chose over your own blood." Liam didn't look angry. He looked devastated. "You never gave me anything," he whispered. "You gave me expectations. You gave me pressure. You gave me fear." Noah stood in the doorway now, small fists, clenched eyes darting between them. The man knelt, suddenly dropping to Noah's eye level. "And you," he said, voice smooth as ice. Do you know what happens when you harbor a runaway? Adults go to jail. Kids go into foster care. Jason stepped forward immediately. Back up. But the damage was done. Noah's face went pale. His breathing quickened. He took a step back into the camper. The man rose, satisfied. That's what I thought, he said. You don't understand the stakes. You're endangering your own boy. Hand Liam over and this all ends. Jason's heartbeat roared in his ears. Not because of the threat to him, because of the fear he'd just watched crawl across Noah's face. A car door slammed. Another sedan pulled into the lot. Then another. 2. 3. Within seconds, several men in suits were walking toward the camper, moving with military precision. Liam whispered, "Oh God." He brought the board's private security. Jason took one long breath. He'd been underestimated his entire life, dismissed, ignored, looked down on. But he had one thing no corporation-trained enforcer could touch. He knew exactly who he was protecting and why. He turned, knelt at the camper door, and looked Noah in the eyes. "You stay inside," he said softly. "No matter what. I'll be right here." Noah nodded, lower lip trembling. Jason stood. The men stopped several feet away. One spoke into an earpiece. "Stand aside, sir." Jason didn't move. "We do not want to use force," the guard continued. "We are authorized to retrieve the subject and escort him to safe custody." "Subject," Jason repeated, letting the word sink in. "He's a kid." "He is an asset," the guard corrected. That was it. That single word. Asset. Jason's vision tunneled. He saw Beth in a hospital bed, doctors talking about coverage limits as if she were a ledger entry. He saw Noah crying after hearing kids whisper that his dad was a nothing. He saw Liam frozen on cold diner asphalt backpack under his head, no one caring what storm he'd survived. People. Human beings. Reduced to assets. No more. When the guards stepped forward, Jason stepped into them. He wasn't trained, but he was strong. Years of lifting pallets and machinery had built a quiet power people didn't notice until it hit them. He grabbed the first guard's jacket, twisted, and sent him stumbling into the second. One swung an arm toward Jason's ribs, but Jason ducked, shoved hard, and drove him back against a car door. Chaos erupted, neighbors shouting doors, slamming someone recording on a cell phone. Liam stared, horrified. "Jason, stop. They'll arrest you." But Jason didn't hear him. Because in his mind, he wasn't fighting professional security. He was fighting for Noah, for Liam, for every person who'd ever been treated like they didn't matter. The main guard rushed him again. This one was bigger, faster. Jason blocked the first hit, but took the second to the shoulder. Pain shot down his arm. He grunted, but stayed standing. "You're outnumbered, Mr. Miller," the man said. Jason spit blood to the side. "Doesn't matter. Why protect him?" the guard demanded. "He's not yours." Jason looked past them, saw Liam standing small and terrified, saw Noah peeking through the camper curtains, saw neighbors frozen in shock. "He doesn't have to be mine," Jason said. "To matter." The guard hesitated. Just long enough. Jason surged forward and slammed the man back with everything he had. The guard hit the side of the sedan, dropping to his knees. Silence rippled across the lot. Everyone had seen it. Everyone. Even Liam's father. The man stared at Jason like he'd never seen a person refuse him anything in his life. Jason stood there, chest heaving, arms shaking, but unbroken. Liam stepped forward, voice hoarse. "He's protecting me because you never did." His father didn't answer. Couldn't. Because in front of an entire trailer park, a warehouse worker with a dented truck had just shown more courage, more loyalty, more love than a man built of money and power. The guards didn't move again. Neighbors whispered. Some filmed. Some watched with open-mouthed awe. Jason didn't raise his fists anymore. He didn't need to. The power dynamic had shifted. For the first time, Liam's father wasn't in control. Jason was. And the man knew it. He looked at his son, then at Jason, then at the stunned crowd. "This isn't over," he said, grabbing his coat. But his voice, his certainty had cracks in it now. Real cracks. He turned away humiliated and walked back toward his car as neighbors whispered behind him. Liam watched him go. Noah watched Jason like he was seeing his father for the first time. And Jason finally let out the breath he'd been holding since the day Liam stepped into their lives. Something irreversible had just happened. And nothing, not wealth, not power, not threats, was going to put things back the way they were. Jason stood in the center of the lot, breathing hard, sweat cooling against the early afternoon breeze. His knuckles ached. His shoulder throbbed from the hit he'd taken. And yet everything around him felt strangely still, like the world was holding its breath trying to understand what it had just witnessed. People hovered at doorways, half hidden behind aluminum frames and faded curtains. A few whispered. A few stared openly. More than one person had a phone in hand, frozen between recording and fearfully lowering it. Even the dogs went quiet, as if the whole park was unsure whether to cheer or brace for backlash. The guards regrouped, but did not advance again. Liam's father stood rigid beside his door, glasses gone composure, cracked. The three sedans idled with soft, expensive hums, headlights flickering against gravel. Liam remained by the camper steps, his hands shaking, but his eyes locked on Jason like he was seeing something no one else had ever bothered to look for. Noah had both palms pressed against the window, now his face pale but bright with something fierce. Trust, relief, pride. Jason didn't feel heroic. He felt exhausted, heavy, like he'd been carrying a weight for years, and only now realized how deep it had carved into him. Liam's father finally spoke, wiping a smear of dust from his coat sleeve. This was a mistake he muttered not to the guards, not to Liam, but to himself. Then louder. "We're done here. For now." A guard hesitated. "Sir, I said we're done." The sedans rolled out slowly, a defeated procession, and the trailer park released a collective exhale. But instead of dispersing, neighbors stepped closer. Mrs. Patterson from Lot 14 approached with a trembling hand on her walker. Kel, the dishwasher from the diner, pushed through the crowd with disbelief on his face. Even Mrs. Lawton, who had spent the last week making Jason's life hell, stood frozen at the edge of the gravel mouth, slightly open. Jason swallowed, nodding politely, trying to escape back toward the camper, but someone called out. "Miller, you okay? Holy hell, man, that was something. That guy looked like he wanted to buy the whole street and burn it down, and you just stood there." Questions flew. Gratitude. Curiosity. Admiration. The shift happened quickly, too quickly, and Jason didn't like the feeling of eyes on him. He opened the camper door. Liam followed him in silently. Noah barreled into Jason the second the door shut. "Dad, you were awesome. You pushed that guy, and you didn't even back up, and you..." Jason held him tight, swallowing the knot rising in his throat. "Hey now," he whispered. None of that should have had to happen. Noah hugged him harder, like he sensed the truth beneath the words. Liam lingered by the kitchenette, arms folded like he was holding himself together. I don't understand why you did that," he said softly. "After everything people said about me, about you." Jason let Noah go and faced him. "Doesn't matter what they said. Liam's voice dropped. You could have been killed. Maybe Jason answered, but I wasn't going to let you be taken by force. Or Noah get scared out of his mind. A long silence followed. The kind that feels like it's building toward something more than gratitude. Something heavier. Something waiting to break open. Liam sat down, elbows on his knees, eyes distant. There's something you need to know. Jason and Noah both looked at him. The kid took a slow breath. My father didn't just disapprove of me, or pressure me, or expect things. His voice wavered. He made me a tool, a pawn, my whole life. Jason frowned but didn't interrupt. He runs a consulting firm, security, corporate cleanup, political leverage, stuff that's legal if you squint hard enough. I was raised like an heir, groomed, watched. I wasn't allowed to have friends unless they were evaluated. Every message I sent, every place I went monitored. His hands shook as he wiped his eyes. The night I left, it wasn't some teenage tantrum. I walked in on him, and two partners discussing how they planned to use me. Not as a son, as leverage. A talking piece in deals. Someone they could parade around to make clients think we were a picture-perfect family, then force into running the company when it suited them. Jason felt something twist inside. Not surprise. Recognition. Pain he knew too well. The pain of being seen as a thing, not a person. There's more, Liam whispered. Before I left, my dad offered me a position. He almost laughed, except the sound was too sharp, too broken. Vice President of Special Operations. At 19, no experience, no voice, just a puppet with his name on it. Jason sat beside him. So you ran? Liam nodded. And he hates that. Because people don't run from him. Ever. That made sense. Too much sense. Everything from the guards to the threats to the way Liam's father talked about him, not like a son, but an asset, clicked painfully into place. Noah climbed onto the bench beside Liam and put a small hand on his arm. I'm glad you ran, he said simply. Liam gave a wet, shaky laugh. Yeah, me too. The camper was quiet for a moment until a knock rattled the door. Jason tensed. Who is it? It's the park manager, Mrs. Lawton's shaky voice replied. Jason opened the door cautiously. She stood there, clutching a folder to her chest. Her lipstick smeared like she'd bitten it nervously. I wanted to say something, she said. I think I owe you an apology. A big one. Jason blinked. That was not what he expected. I've been giving you a hard time about having a guest, she continued, eyes lowering. I thought you were hiding trouble. But today, I saw someone who protects people, even when it costs him. Jason didn't know what to say. She held out the folder. Your lot rent, it's waived for the month, and if you need time to sort this out, you'll have it. No inspections, no warnings. Jason's eyes widened. He took the folder slowly. Mrs. Lawton, thank you. She nodded, chin trembling, then hurried away. More neighbors approached after her. Kel from the diner awkwardly scratched his neck. Listen, man. I said some things. Dumb things. But what you did out there, nobody does that. Not for someone who isn't family. Jason forced a smile. Sometimes family just shows up at your door. Kel nodded once and stepped back. Word spread through the lot like wildfire. Jason Miller, the quiet forklift guy, had stood toe-to-toe with men who looked like they owned the moon. And he didn't blink, didn't waver, didn't sell out. But admiration wasn't the only thing that followed. An hour later, when the lot had settled again, another vehicle pulled in. Not a sedan this time, not luxury, A dusty brown SUV with government plates. Jason stepped forward cautiously as a woman in a dark blazer got out. She flashed a badge too quickly for him to read and tucked it away. "Mr. Miller," she asked. "Who's asking? My name is Agent Marin Locke." She looked around at the curious neighbors drifting out again. "May we talk inside?" Jason hesitated, then opened the door. Liam stiffened when he saw her. She noticed. "You must be Liam West." He nodded slowly. "I'm not here on behalf of your father," she said carefully. "Quite the opposite." Jason crossed his arms. "Meaning what your father's company has been under quiet investigation for 2 years," she said. "Several agencies, including mine, have concerns about illegal surveillance coercion and illicit contract acquisition." Liam's face tightened. "Until recently," she continued, "we lacked leverage. But your disappearance drew attention, and investigators started combing deeper." Jason felt a chill. "So why come here?" "Because," she said, looking between them, "you're in the middle of something bigger than family drama. Your act of protecting him today didn't just go viral online, it triggered a flurry of movement within Westcorp." Jason blinked. "Viral?" She nodded. "You were recorded." "A lot. The footage is spreading fast. A man standing up to corporate intimidation. People respond to that." Jason rubbed his face. "Oh, hell." Agent Locke's voice softened. "Mr. Miller, what you did out there didn't just protect Liam. It exposed the lengths his father is willing to go. My department would like to formally request your cooperation." Liam stared at her. "Cooperation?" "For your safety," she said. "For Noah's safety. And for your father's accountability." Jason looked at Liam. The kid's eyes were wide, hopeful, and terrified all at once. "What does cooperation mean?" Jason asked. "It means Agent Locke said pulling out a card we protect you while you help us stop him. You'd have a say, a voice, and you'd be compensated, relocated if you choose." Jason's heart thudded. His whole life, people looked down on him, saw him as small, replaceable. But now a federal agent was standing in his tiny camper offering help. Safety. A role that mattered. Liam turned to him, voice cracking. "Jason, I don't want to run anymore." Noah stepped forward too. "Dad, I don't want you to get hurt, but I don't want Liam to be hurt either." Jason looked at both boys, the one he raised, the one who had stumbled into their lives, and felt something settle in his chest. A decision forming. A responsibility he didn't ask for, but couldn't walk away from. Agent Locke waited. "What happens next?" Jason asked quietly. She gave a thin, serious smile. "That depends," she said, "on whether you're ready to take the next step." Jason exhaled slowly, the weight of the future tightening around him. "I think," he said at last, "it's time someone stood up to your father, Liam. And not just in a parking lot." Liam's eyes shone with something new. Hope, fear, strength. Outside, the wind shifted, rattling the camper walls like a warning or a promise. The offer from Agent Locke changed the temperature of the room. It wasn't fear anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was something steadier, like the moment before a man finally decides to stop running from the storm and turn toward it. Liam's father disappeared from the lot that day, but word spread fast that his company hadn't taken the parking lot confrontation well. Board members demanded explanations. Analysts questioned leaked footage showing elite security harassing a 19-year-old. And in every video clip online, there was Jason standing in front of Liam like a shield, refusing to back down. For the first time in his life, people weren't laughing at him or overlooking him. They were listening. Neighbors who once whispered behind their hands now stopped Jason on the gravel path with casseroles, pats on the shoulder, and soft apologies. Even the warehouse, once a place where Jason's worth seemed measured in how quietly he could endure, shifted. Kelton called him into the office not to reprimand him, but to stammer out something close to respect. "Heard what you did," he muttered, eyes down. "That took guts, Miller. More than most of us have." The strangest moment came when Mrs. Lawton knocked on the camper door with trembling fingers, holding a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note releasing Jason from 3 months of back rent. "For your courage," she wrote, "and for reminding the rest of us what community actually means." Jason didn't know what to say. So he nodded, thanked her, and tucked the envelope away like something precious. Agent Locke made good on her word. Within 48 hours, she arranged temporary protection for the 3 of them. Nothing flashy, just regular drive-bys, a case officer checking in, and a direct line Jason could call day or night. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Noah sleep easier, and enough to let Liam breathe again. Then came the part Jason hadn't expected. A job offer. Not from the warehouse, not from the park, from Agent Locke herself. She handed him a folder one afternoon while Noah played outside, and Liam sat at the tiny dinette, filling out college paperwork. "We could use someone like you," she said simply. "We saw how you handled yourself. You're calm under pressure, you put people first, and you don't scare easy. My department runs programs that work with at-risk youth, particularly kids caught in situations like Liam's. Mechanics, logistics, field mentoring. You'd be a strong fit." Jason stared at her. "I'm a forklift operator, ma'am." "You're a protector," she corrected. "And that's harder to teach." He opened the folder slowly. The position wasn't glamorous. It wasn't loud. But it was honest work that mattered, helping teens rebuild their lives, guiding them through vocational training, keeping them safe when the world turned mean. It felt like something he could actually do well. Jason looked at Liam. The kid watched him with a small, trembling smile, the kind that came from seeing someone believe in you for the first time. "I'll think about it," Jason said. But the truth was already settling into place. Weeks passed. Investigators pressured Westcorp. Lawsuits gathered like thunderclouds. Liam's father stepped down temporarily, though everyone knew what that meant. Employees talked openly for the first time. Whistleblowers shared stories. The polished empire cracked. Not because of a scandal discovered in a boardroom, but because a 19-year-old had finally said no, and a man in steel-toed boots had stood beside him. The day Jason accepted the job, Noah climbed into his lap and wrapped his arms around his neck. "Does this mean you won't work nights anymore?" he whispered. Jason swallowed hard. "Yeah, buddy. No more nights." Noah nodded against his chest. "Good. I like when you're home." Liam, sitting across the room, wiped his eyes quickly. "Me too," he said, trying to make it sound like a joke, and failing. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. The camper still creaked in the wind. Bills still came. The truck still coughed black smoke on cold mornings. But there was peace now. Real peace. The kind that grows quietly without asking permission. A year later, the trailer park looked different. Not physically. The gravel was still uneven. The siding still dented. But the people changed. They waved more. Helped more. Looked out for one another the way communities used to before the world sped up, and everyone forgot how to be neighbors. Jason stood on the small wooden steps one warm evening, watching Noah and Liam toss a football back and forth under the street lamp. Liam had grown into himself, stronger, taller, laughing more freely. He was enrolled in community college now, studying social work on a scholarship a local foundation had created in part because of his story. Sometimes when the light hit just right, Jason swore he could see the boy he'd found sleeping in that cold car and the man he was becoming, both standing in the same place. Agent Locke stopped by often, checking in on the boys, sharing updates about the case, leaning on Jason's insight more than he ever expected. He wasn't a full agent, not by a long shot, but he had a title now. Youth Outreach Coordinator, a badge for certain sites, a team that respected him, and a purpose that made him stand a little taller each morning. And once a month, without fail, a letter arrived addressed to Liam in handwriting that looked tighter and shakier as time passed. No return address, no signature. Always the same opening line, "I am trying to learn." Liam never opened them with bitterness, only a quiet acceptance that some men take longer to change and some wounds take longer to mend. As for Jason, his reward wasn't a paycheck or a title. It was something simpler, more sacred. On a late summer evening, Noah crawled onto the couch beside him, rested his head on Jason's arm, and said, half asleep, "I'm glad you helped Liam. If you didn't, he wouldn't be my brother." Jason looked over at the two boys, one born to him, one brought to him, and felt something settle inside his ribs. A kind of gratitude that hurt in a good way. He thought of Beth, thought of the way she used to say that families aren't something you inherit. They're something you choose day after day. The boys fell asleep, leaning on each other, the camper warm with the sound of soft breaths and quiet trust. And in that gentle silence, Jason realized something he'd never known before. Sometimes the world doesn't need a man with money or power or perfect answers. Sometimes it just needs a man who refuses to look away, a man who shows up, a man who stays. And when he closed his eyes and let the peace settle around him, he understood deep down that courage isn't measured by the size of the man or the strength of his fists. It's measured by the love he's willing to protect, even when the whole world doubts he can. And that kind of courage, well, that's the kind that makes a life worth living.